here already, so let's go ahead and kick it off. You bet. Fantastic. All right, cameras rolling in 3, 2, 1. No kidding. Again, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our April monthly general meeting. Once again, a virtual meeting, but as many of you have asked, are we ever going to go back to live? Well, let's just say we are definitely working on it. No promises, but we are definitely working on that, and we'll keep everyone updated. The board will be meeting next week to talk about it some, so we'll see how that works out. Tonight, of course, April 7th, it is our general meeting, and let's go ahead and get right into the slides and get things rolling. Of course, got to cover some of the mandatory stuff right up front. Again, we are, of course, a nonprofit. Not just the largest and the oldest REIA in Florida, but again, we're not for profit trade association, and our goal here is to make sure that everybody not only enjoys themselves, but that everybody understands we're here to help promote ethical real estate investing. We want to do that through making sure everybody has opportunities where they can learn about the real estate market, they can get education, they can network with others. And I think that the one thing that many of us, especially those of us serving on the board, and I know many others as well, really all talk about is just how important that networking is and how freely those of us that are a part of CFRI give to one another in terms of information and helping each other out, which is certainly one of the reasons I'm here. Buffy, we'll go. Yep, thank you. All right, so a couple of disclaimers to get out of the way, of course. CFRI is not here as the legal, tax, economic, investment advisor. You need to have your own for those. So we're going to go ahead and disclaim all liability for action or inaction that is taken as a result of anything we say or do. Again, you need to have and consult your own professionals. That's why we have those as business members. You can, when you're a member, you can go on the website, you can see who the business members are. You can see people that are accountants, they're CPAs, they're lawyers, and you can get that information. And please do that. A couple of Zoom etiquette rules that we like to go through. And this is not only just for the general meeting. Actually, it really applies more to all of the meetings. Because this one is a webinar format, and in webinar format, the only folks that really are going to be on camera are going to be those of us that are part of the panel or part of making this run. Everybody else just gets to relax and participate. But when you're on any of the other county meetings, the focus group meetings, those that are being conducted via Zoom, you do want to make sure that you follow a couple rules. One of the first is with relation to advertising, and there's two kind of pieces here. First of all, before you can advertise anything, you've got to be a CFRI member, and it's got to be something that you have under control to advertise it. It's not one of those where you can say, hey, I know about this thing. No, it has to be under your control. And if you're going to advertise any type of name or company or phone number as a part of your background or your name in Zoom, then you need to be a business member who has approval to do that. Otherwise, you should not be doing that. As far as other promotion, we are only here to promote CFRI stuff, and obviously we're not going to promote anything else unless it's something that's been approved by the executive director, which is Buffy. Always a good idea to test everything out first, because you don't want to get on one of these meetings and then go, but I can't hear, but I can't see. And that does happen from time to time. Also, make sure that when you are on any Zoom call, not just CFRI Zoom calls, keep yourself muted unless you're the one that's speaking, because you never know when that unexpected noise or background noise is going to occur. And speaking of background noise, be aware your microphone can pick up a whole lot more than you think it can. I had an instance the other day where I walked in to one of the rooms that my wife was on a call in, and I went, and then I caught myself before I said something out loud that I probably wouldn't have wanted everybody to hear. So just be aware of those things, all right? Obviously, the same is true with distractions. Try to keep things in the background to a minimum. And please try not to do things that might gross other people out. And sometimes that's eating. We know you're going to take a drink or a sip, but just try to keep that down as a courtesy to others. All right, continuing on. If you didn't know this already, we are online, and we're online on several places. So we have Facebook group. We're on not only Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, we have Meetup. And make sure that as you become a member of CFRI, that you not only are in the group, but you're in the members only group, because you're going to get even more usefulness out of that. Of course, one of the things that comes with being a member of CFRI is the fact that we're not just CFRI, we're actually part of a larger association. We're part of the National REIA. And so we're, of course, proud to be a chapter member that's been around since 1989, a very long time. And one of the things that comes with that is a whole lot of benefits because of this association with National REIA. Some of them you may have heard people talk about. If you haven't before, there are a couple we're going to highlight that are very important because they give you a lot of extra benefit that you should be taking advantage of, like the Home Depot. Home Depot, you sign up, and with your account, you actually go in and put in the actual agreement code, and you learn all about that when you become a member. When you do that, you're going to automatically be on track to get 2% back from your purchases as a rebate. Excuse me. You also have the ability to qualify under the paint discounts and bulk purchase and so on. It is outstanding. And if you haven't heard how good that program is, just ask some of the other folks that are members and listen to some of the checks they've gotten. Also, Office Depot, Office Max, great program that they have available as well. You can go and get discounts on things like printing, which a lot of us obviously do. And I know several of our previous board members have bragged about all the money they've saved there, and they've saved a bunch. So those are just a couple of the ones we want to highlight. There are quite a few, but again, that's what comes with being a member and being a part of CFRI. Now, as a part of CFRI, you can find out about all of the CFRI resources by going to our website. You can do that by going to CFRI.net. Obviously, that's the website. Not only can you check out what the calendar looks like, you can check out things like who are the members, who are the business members. Of course, some of these you actually have to be a member yourself to take advantage of those, which is why we will always be encouraging you, if you're not already a member, to be a member. Now, in the month of April, one of the things that we are going to do is continue the pattern of having our groups done remotely via Zoom. And I will say again, for those of you that are wondering, are we going to be going back in person? I would assume at some point, obviously, yes. Will that be in the month of May? Well, it remains to be seen, because our board meeting will be next week, and we will be talking about that, and we'll see what we can do. But obviously, we understand that everybody does have that desire to network in person and get back to some of the ways of being normal, and we're looking forward to that as well. And we will certainly keep you updated. And I know Buffy told me that once we have that decision, she will make an announcement and everybody will know about it. All right, 6 counties that we cover. We also have the focus group meetings. And speaking of meetings, one of the things that is going to happen tonight is after our meeting, you do get to network. But to do that, you have to sign up and get a separate link and come to the meeting after the meeting. That's right. You see it right there. Interactive event for members. It's a CFRI members only event. Now, if you're not a member and you want to partake of that, I bet Buffy can help you figure out how to get signed up. Buffy, not to throw you under the bus there, or, say, just sign people up, do all that in addition to everything else you're doing, running the show. But that is something we're going to have. So if you haven't been to one of those, it's outstanding, because it is a way that we get to network with each other. And it is a separate event. It's a separate link. So make sure if you're going to that you do get signed up for that. And you can find it, of course, on CFRI.net. That's where you can sign up.
I also just put the link in the chat, so they can click right on that
perfect
link and sign up to attend the meeting after the general meeting.
Outstanding. And speaking of chat, one of the things that we want to mention, we'll mention it a couple of times, but I want to go ahead and mention it while I'm thinking about it now too, is when we do get to places for questions and answers, the Q&A portion, especially when we're doing deal of the month, and really especially when we get to our feature speaker this evening, make sure you use the Q&A, not the chat. Make sure you use the Q&A for that. Now, that gentleman that I was talking about that you're going to get to hear from is Andy Heller. And not only is he going to be speaking tonight and letting you know about his program, he has of course, a workshop that he's going to be doing on Saturday that you can attend. Look at that price. really good price on this. Okay. For members, $9, non-members, $14. It's going to be Saturday. It's 9 to 1. And we'll even have video replay available, which we don't always get to do. So if you're wondering what's this all about, well, take a look at that title, REO and Lease Options Expert. But you know what? Stick around because Andy is going to tell you all about it, and he is great to listen to. Another class we've got coming up that's going to be very, very interesting, and that's Joe Siegel's class on land trusts and subject to. Joe is an attorney, of course. He's a business member for CFRI. He does a fantastic job with us in talking about land trust. If you're not familiar with those, you definitely want to go to this class and learn why they're so important for a lot of what we do. That class is going to be on Thursday, April 22nd from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., of course. Member price $44, non-member $64. And Buffy, is that, I don't think that one is one that will be recorded. Is that
I'm
correct?
not sure yet, but I can tell you that we only do this class once a year. He only does it
Right.
once a year, so you're definitely going to want to make arrangements to be there.
Yeah, definitely. And by doing it Thursday night, hopefully everybody can make that, especially in case that's not one we're able to do a recording with. But again, very informative. Joe does a great job. He spends a lot of time answering questions and really covers the subject very well. So those of you that are out there right now listening in, and then saying, well, well, guess what? Have we got a deal for you? Check this out. Not a member right now? You could become a member for only $75. That's right. We're trying something new. 3-month trial membership, $75. You want to know more about it? You just have to ask our lovely Buffy, and she will help you get a membership in CFRI. How's that? Pretty cool, huh? All right. Buffy, everything good right now?
Yeah, I was just seeing. Yeah, you did. Okay. I thought so. I wasn't sure if it was my computer or not, but every once in a while you are freezing up. So.
Oh, that's terrible.
No,
that's what happens when you let guests into your home. You should have blocked them.
Kick them out. Darn it. So anyway, I'm monitoring that. I just want to ask the panelists if it was me and my computer, if it was you, but we're all good. We're all good. We'll just keep rolling.
We'll keep it rolling. All right. So anyway, I apologize if that did occur. Normally it doesn't. We got high speed over here, but sometimes. Anyway, CFRI podcast. If you have not checked it out, you absolutely need to do that. It's on all the major channels, Spotify, Stitcher, all that good stuff. And look at all the different interviews you can take advantage of and learn about these members. It's fantastic. So check it out. Now, one of the things that we like to do every single meeting is make sure that we are not up here just saying, oh yeah, you can do real estate. It's easy. You don't have to try real hard. Nothing special at all. No, you want to hear the real deal. And the way that you hear the real deal is by listening to our feature called Deal of the Month, which is going to be run here in a second by our wonderful Vice President, Stephen Young. Just remember that the only way that we get to do these deals of the month is by finding out that the deals occurred. So if you have a deal of the month, make sure that you let Stephen know about it. There's his email address. And that way we can get you featured as one of the folks on Deal of the Month. And then you get to not only share that information and let everybody else learn from it, but you also get that publicity where everybody can say, hey, that person does deals, and you can network even more. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen to get started on Deal of the Month.
Hey, Jay, appreciate the intro. Thank you. And yeah, like you said, guys, if you have deals, let me know. I'm looking for deals. So please, please, please reach out to me. Otherwise, I'm going to come find you guys. So I'm looking on Facebook and following people. So in any case, Shawn, let me introduce Shawn McCormick. He's our first deal of the month, and he actually did reach out to me. So I'm very excited to cover this deal. Guys, listen, this isn't one we see often. And so with that, Shawn, please, are you there? Introduce yourself.
I'm here.
Okay. Hey, Shawn. So this is interesting. Before we get too into the weeds, quickly, when was the deal done and what was your method for getting this deal? Because I mean, is that correct? Ohio. What's
Yeah.
going on here?
So that's where I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. So I had a little bit of an inside scoop here on the market, and it was actually this lead came to me from literally my oldest friend. You know, I've known him since I was about 5 years old. Lived right down the street from me.
Oh wow.
So I moved away from this town when I was about 19, but I obviously still have contacts there. And we were Facebook friends, and I saw he was going through some stuff, and I reached out to him, and it took this deal took well over 2 years to cultivate that relationship and get him to remember who not remember who I am, but know what I do now.
Right.
Because we hadn't seen each other much in the last 25 years, once in a great while. But Facebook brought us back together. I noticed he was doing some stuff, and he had some tragedies befall him, family, and I just said, hey, if you ever need help, I'm in real estate, and I'd love to be able to help you out. And so this house, this was where his sister lived.
Oh.
Which I knew her too growing up, obviously. But she lived here. She was married. Her husband passed away, and she was living here by herself. And then a short time later, she passed away.
Oh wow.
So the house eventually went to my friend's father, which I knew, but he was sick at the time as well.
Jeez.
About a year later, after I saw that his sister passed away, his dad was really sick, and my friend was taken to the hospital all the time. And I knew that this house was going to be a burden, but I didn't want to, seem like I'm opportunist, and swoop in.
Right,
but
right.
I reached out and said, hey, I'm still here if you need me, as a friend, not just about the house. And then a short time later, his father passed away. So
wow.
From his sister to his father, and now he's the only one left, so he got it.
Okay.
To him, and he reached out to me and said, hey, Shawn, I don't want this. This is a burden on me, and I want nothing to do with it. I've been maintaining it since my sister died, because my dad was sick, and it's on my responsibility. And it turns out he is sick. He's got stage 4 cancer.
Oh no.
So it's just one more thing that he didn't need on his plate. And he said, I'm ready to do this, Shawn. What do we have to do? And he kind of gave me a ballpark idea what he wanted for it. I'm a realtor, but I don't have MLS access in that area, so I had to rely on, comps just like the general public does, and resources that we all use. And I saw the ARV of this could be in the mid 70s, low 80s. This was going back, well over a year ago when I first started the conversation.
Okay.
But when he finally reached out to me and said, I want to do the deal, I wrote it down. My first email to him, I made my first offer on September 16th of last year.
Oh, wow. Okay. Excellent. So I'm really glad to hear that. And I'm glad you pointed this out. And Buffy, you can go to the next slide, that you were in the position to help somebody. And it wasn't simply about being predatory and taking advantage. You're actually there to help this guy and his family, really, who had seen several tragedies. So that's great to hear that you did that.
Yeah.
So you said you did some research. So the purchase price, is that typical of Toledo, or?
No, this is low. This has been free and clear for a couple decades. So
I see.
He wasn't looking to make money. He just wanted it off his plate. So he gave me a number of 30,000, and I did some research. Like I said, I hadn't been inside the house. But I knew the neighborhood. This is an area that I'm familiar with. So I knew the area. I knew the houses over there. It's in a fantastic school district, which I went to. So I was confident on, the ARV being kind of where I had found it to be.
We thought it would. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I have to jump in here. So what was your biggest concern then? So it sounded like things were looking pretty good, but did you have any concerns jumping in? Was it the fact that it was in Ohio and you're here in Florida? What was your big concern?
That was the biggest thing, was I didn't know what condition it was really in. And of course, all sellers, regardless of what, arm's length have to the property, they all say, oh, it's not that bad, or
it's fine.
It just needs that.
Some paint.
Again, it's a very small house. It's only 672 square feet. So it's like, how much can possibly be wrong, right?
Sure.
But in Ohio, they have furnaces, you know, so that was a big concern where they don't have just AC units. They have, this was a fuel oil burning furnace, which
Oh, wow.
I knew nothing about. And luckily, this house doesn't have a basement because a lot of homes up there have basements, which means, you know, water intrusion and a whole set of other things that I didn't know how to deal with. But
Sure.
I knew the home was very old. It was built in, I think, 51, 52. So I knew there was going to be some issues, electrical, plumbing, roof, everything. So I prepared myself for worst case, and that's what I base my offers on.
Okay, excellent. And that transitions perfectly right into the next slide. So with the repairs that you had to do, you estimated 15K. So let's talk a little bit about, well, you talked about the furnace, but you know, got here, there still are some things that are yet to be done.
Yeah, not too much. It's rented at this point, but I'm literally I still need to do some of the outside work because I closed on this October 30th.
Okay.
And by the time I did the demo and stuff, and I hired or I found contractors that could do the work, it was already, the weather had turned too much for me to be able to paint and put a roof on it. So there's still some things that I'm going to be doing here very shortly now that the weather's turned again up there in the springtime.
Okay, so how complicated was it to get contractors? Because I know a lot of folks just in our general market struggle with trying to get good quality contractors. How were you able to manage that from a distance?
That was probably my biggest challenge, you know, just because there's only, you know, wanting to keep everyone wants to keep their costs low, and you know, we all like to do deals within like an hour of our house. Well, this is a flight and a rental car and a hotel away, so just
Wow.
one trip up there cost me $1,000 every time I go.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to be very careful of that. So I reached out to, you know, my Facebook friends from high school and said, hey, who do you know? Who do you know? And it wound up being, I went through a couple, but I wound up finding a brother of someone that I went to school with in my grade that I graduated with.
Wow, amazing.
So it turned out okay. I literally never met him until he was finished with the job. The day after he finished the job was the first time I met him. So it was
Wow.
very nerve-wracking. I sent him some big checks on the way and didn't even know if the work was being done. So I had people that lived nearby that could drive by and stop in. I gave them my key code and let them in and checked up on things. So I knew things were being done, but
Got
I
it.
still didn't know the trustworthiness of, you know, because I had multiple contractors. So that was very scary.
Wow, amazing. Okay, now let's jump into the numbers. So next slide, Buffy. And I kind of want you to walk us through, because again, this is quite a unique deal. Just kind of touch base and maybe explain a little bit the seller financing, like for a new person and even for an experienced person, kind of how did that work? Because typically people will, you know, just pay all cash or get private money, but you didn't go that route.
Yeah, so this one, because it was out of state, I didn't feel that I was gonna. It would be more difficult to find money to loan on this for me. So I wanted to finance it all myself. So in doing so, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to come out of pocket 30,000 for the purchase price and then renovations, which I didn't really know at that point, and my holding costs, I was nervous about that. So I really needed the seller finance piece of this to make it feasible for me to do on my own. Plus, it's a rental, so finding money long term on a rental out of state is even more of a challenge. So I made him 3 offers. One was all cash at 30,000.
Okay.
Another one at $15,000 down and $200 a month for 96 months, which he would have netted 34,200. And then I offered him $10,000 down and $300 a month for 60 months with a balloon of $8,000 after 5 years, which nets him $36,000. So
Nice.
he wasn't in great need of the money. He liked the idea of having a paycheck every month for $300,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as having that 10,000 to pay off his current bills. But he didn't need all the money at once. So that was, you know, it netted him the most money and it made the most sense to him. So we did that deal.
That's excellent. And for those that may be a little confused, the spring repairs, that's not sprinklers or a typo. That's the repairs that you were talking about before that
I
still are
still,
yet to be done, right?
yeah. So that's a new roof and exterior painting and some, light landscaping.
Okay, and you're planning on doing that probably within the next month or two?
Yeah.
Okay, with the weather changing. All right, great. Well, this is awesome. Great cash flow on this one. So before we move on to the last slide, any issues while trying to close? Because I could imagine this could be a little tricky, right? Work with a title company, or did you not work with one? How did that go?
Yeah, so I reached out to people on Bigger Pockets. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with that. And asked for the best investor-friendly title company in that area. And a couple people that I know that are CFRI members have done deals in Ohio. So I reached out to them and kind of got the consensus that I found one that worked. They didn't completely understand every aspect of it, but I used our Commonwealth Trust Services here locally to put the house into a trust, and then they kind of helped negotiate with the title company as far as getting all the paperwork that we needed completed.
Great, that's excellent, awesome. All right, next slide. I just love how you were able to leverage like every possible network you had to overcome the obstacles. So that's incredible. So what would you do differently? Would there be anything that you do differently about this deal?
Honestly, there was a lot of challenges, and it was scary and frustrating many times.
Sure.
I know we've heard this before. I know Peter just said this on one of his deals, I think last month or the month before.
Yep.
The learning experience that I gained from this is irreplaceable. And I'm already under contract on another house in this town, and I close on the 20th. So this deal got me another deal. So I can't complain of everything I went through. It's not only taught me lessons, I'm not scared to do a deal out of state anymore. So that's invaluable. And like I said, it's got me another deal that I'm going to cash flow and be able to, and I'm doing that one on my own too. No private money. I'm financing it myself through a traditional mortgage. So, I'm not putting all my eggs in the Toledo, Ohio basket, but it hasn't been a bad experience. Like I said, sleepless nights and frustrating, and I wish I could be there on the ground.
Sure.
But, I've been fortunate to have some good friends in that town and people that I can, rely on a little bit. So as far as regrets, I really don't have any.
Have none. Awesome. Excellent. Very good. So guys, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A portion on your screen, not in the chat, because I can't see those. So.
Yeah, actually, Stephen, I saw one of them come in the chat, and it actually kind of dovetails into a question that I wanted to ask Shawn as well.
Yeah, go for it.
And so the question that was in the chat, and again, like Stephen said, please put those in the Q&A, folks, was talking about the seller financing options that you gave them, and maybe you could go through those one more time. But my question that kind of dovetails on that was, when he was, if I understood this correctly, he also has cancer. Did that maybe weigh into what he might have wanted as far as the financing? Because I know sometimes people will say, like, I did a deal recently where somebody said, well, I'll give you money, but it ain't gonna be for 30 years. I ain't planning on being around that long.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if you could maybe go through those one more time, and did that affect the decision?
Honestly, I don't know if it did or not. I know he's got tremendous medical bills going through what he's going through. Like, he's on chemotherapy, and he's been treating himself for several years now with all natural stuff, and he's kind of opposed to the modern medicine aspect of this. So his lifestyle's had to change dramatically, and I know I don't know what kind of income he has, because he literally walks around with a feeding tube in him, and a little backpack. So I was, like I said, this is my oldest friend. He's not my best friend anymore, but he's my oldest friend, and I care about him. So it was a little awkward, bringing up, hey, there's been a lot of tragedy in your life. I'm here to help you through that, but only through the house. So I didn't really want to make that the focal point of why I'm doing this deal. I do feel good. It's hard to even say this. I feel good about myself for being able to be in a position to help my friend. But I think I'm the winner in this, obviously, and that's even hard to say out loud, because I
Sure.
know his days are numbered, and I feel bad, and I don't even know. He's got a son with autism, and he's got a daughter that's in college, so he's a caregiver for his son, and he's an adult. He's like, I think 23 or 24, so his adult son lives with him on top of being sick himself. So when he passes, I'm going to be paying his son someday, and I don't know if he has the wherewithal to understand why he's getting a check every month. I don't know the capacity he has intellectually. So, but that's going to be a bridge I have to cross someday. Hopefully not, because the mortgage is only for 5 years, and hopefully we'll all be squared away by then.
Sure.
We'll pulling through this, but yeah, that was an interesting aspect to it, and it was a tough decision for him to make, I'm sure.
And what were the I think you said you gave him 3 different options. Is that right?
Yeah. So he asked for me for 30,000, and like I said, I knew the ARV was in the 70s, low 80s, so I knew I had plenty of room no matter what was wrong with it. So I offered him full price, cash offer, 30,000 cash, and then I offered him, the second one was $15,000 down with $200 a month for 96 months, which would net him 34,200. No balloon, no nothing, just a straight up that way. And then the one he accepted was $10,000 down and $300 a month for 60 months with a $5,000, or I'm sorry, an $8,000 balloon at month 61. So he chose the one option that netted him the most money, and that was most attractive to him.
Awesome. Yeah, go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good, Jay. Yeah, you gotta love giving folks options. So we're gonna be running short on time, folks. I know you got quite a few questions. I'll try to get to 2. There's one that I can combine. So property management, how did you find the renters? Did you get a property manager, and did they find renters for you? How'd that go?
Did, and that is one of those aspects that I'm not very thrilled with. I did find them again on Bigger Pockets. That town, it's a town of about 250, 300,000 people, so it's a good sized town, but it's kind of short on good quality investment, trades and
Yeah.
things, contractors and everything. So I kind of went with the one. I put it out there, hey, I want somebody that's got at least 100 properties under contract, that's been in business for 10 or more years, and that has good software, technology. And the company does. They have all that. They have about 450 properties under management.
Oh, nice.
But I'm learning a lesson with property management out of state. There's snow removal and things that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, Ohio problems. Yeah. So I'm going to combine this last question. There's 2, but I'm going to kind of combine it. So we didn't talk about interest. Was there interest? Was this a 0 interest deal? And also, what was your ROI? So your return on investment. And then that'll be the last question.
So the interest, I just put in a trivial 2%. I
Okay.
0, and I felt a little bad, and it's wound up. I think that's going to change the total due. Actually, I haven't looked at that lately since I closed, but I think that ups the total to him a little bit more. But again, I didn't suffer, when he does his taxes or anything there. And my return, I haven't calculated that yet because I'm not done spending the money on the initial. Like I feel like I have to do a roof, and I don't know the painting, the landscaping. I've got a $10,000 budget. I did get a roof quote of only $4,800 on this.
What?
That's why I only have $10,000 for roof and exterior paint. It sounds like that's not even enough for a roof, but yeah. So I proof is in the pudding. When I get that done, if it's really $4,800, I'll be happy. But then, yeah, I haven't figured all that out yet.
Cool. Very good. Well, hey, Shawn, I appreciate you reaching out to me, being willing to share this deal. This was awesome. There's still quite a few questions. So your contact info has been up there for the last 5 minutes. So folks, if you have additional questions, please reach out to Shawn. And again, Shawn, thank you. This was awesome.
Just a correction on the email. It's eragrizard.com, not just Grizzard.
ERA Grizzard. Okay. Got it. Thanks, Shawn.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. That was awesome. So now we're going to welcome to the stage, as it were. Devin and Chad. I think they called this one the broken house.
Well, we didn't call it the Broken House. It actually acquired the name from the different membership of CFRI.
It was like a Facebook poll or something, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I think actually Devin might be able to speak better on that. But yeah, it came from either Facebook or something like that. What?
Yep, it came from Facebook. We had a post up on Facebook asking people to name this one. We threw up a couple pictures, and as I'm sure we'll explain in just a second, we got comments from, it was the sunken treasure, or it was the crack house, or the broken house. The broken house ended up winning, so that's what we called it.
Okay, very good. I kind of like the sunken treasure, but in any case, so question one, what was the condition? Obviously it was bad, but truly, what was the condition of this home when you guys, pulled up on this thing?
Well, true story, we pulled up on it after having just driven by it once, because it was a foreclosure. So when we drove by it, there was actually a vehicle up in the carport area, which is right by the front door. Is behind the tree in the picture there. And so we figured it was occupied, so we never went up to it and took a look at it or anything like that. Okay. So essentially we ended up buying it sight unseen. It's in a neighborhood where we have flipped several different houses, so we knew that we were getting a fantastic price on it. And after all was said and done, and we actually were able to take a look at the property, there were some pretty significant foundation issues with it.
I see. Okay, so this is interesting. So how long have you two been flipping homes together? Because it's not typical that we have partnerships, and I know we did a deal of the month about a year ago now. So I'm curious, how long have you guys been doing that, and who does what?
Oh, well, we actually have like an informal partnership. We each own our own company, and we just decide project to project to partner. Although we've done most every single project, I think, in the last couple of years together, because we do actually work really well together. We did our first project in July of 2018, I think, was our first project.
Okay.
And I met Devin at a CFRI meeting. I remember coming out of the main building there over in Orlando after a meeting, and we just started chatting, and it turned out we were, close to each other as far as where we lived. And I mentioned, hey, I got a project that I'm looking at picking up. Do you want to take a look? And it blossomed from there, obviously. And I actually wound up buying the project without Devin, but then afterwards told him I bought it and said, hey, do you want to, are you interested? Do you want to play, kind of thing? And
yeah,
he's like, sure. And he wrote a check for half of it that day, and then here we are. So
wow.
we've done really well since then.
That's awesome. Quite a partnership. Okay, let's go to the next slide, Buffy. So you guys knew the area, you got a pretty fantastic purchase price. What was your approach to determining the repairs? Just because this was, it was sinking in the ground. So what was your approach to getting to that estimate?
Well, I'll comment real quick and I'll let Devin pick it up, but
sure.
We actually didn't know that it was sinking in the ground until after we got there. So the estimated repairs that you see was not based or did not have any basis on the sinking in the ground part.
Okay.
That was just what we thought the rental would cost, for a roof and for windows. And we figured a kitchen, a couple of bathrooms, by the time you figured all that stuff in, HVAC, flooring. So that's where that estimate came from. The sinking part and anything associated with that kind of got added in later. So,
gotcha.
Devin may have more info on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Devin.
No, that's okay.
He's like, I don't want to talk about it. All right. Well, actually, Devin, we're going to talk about it. So the next slide, Buffy. All right. So let's talk about it, like I said. So how long did it take you to do the rehab? And obviously you had the surprise of the sinking floor, but how long did it take you to complete the rehab? Let's talk about from your initial, what you thought it was going to take, and then where you actually ended up.
Sure. So like you saw on the previous slide, we assumed 70 to 75,000.
Yep.
Ended up being around 88, like you see there,
Mm.
because of the foundational issues. The foundation issues for both me and Chad, I believe this was our first property where we had to deal with something like that. So we didn't have a great understanding of what that type of issue might cost. And it was pretty significant in that house too. I ended up calling a buddy of mine who does a lot of flips in North Carolina. And he said, and this is great advice for anyone listening, if you run into foundational issues, get a lot of quotes. Get a lot of quotes because they are all over the place. We had a quote from Alpha Foundations for, I think it was 26,000. And we ended up going with Ramjack, who was, I think, 11 and a half. So there's a lot of variance with all these different companies when it comes to foundation issues. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chad.
Stephen, you asked about how long it took us too, and I just
Yeah.
wanted to. So the project itself, we actually had two projects going at the same time by the time we got in the door. So the project itself took us probably around 3.5 months, mainly because we had contractor issues, had to fire the contractor, things like that. But the actual project, from the day we bought it until we closed and got rid of it, took us 53 weeks.
Oh, wow.
There's a little bit of a backstory there, because we didn't actually get possession of this project when we bought it because of COVID.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so we bought this at auction from the county,
Mhm.
during the foreclosure process. And like good little boys and girls, went down the next day and paid our bill at the county. They were
Right.
happy to take our money, and they gave us our certificate. And of course, then you have to wait 10 days for the actual deed to be issued. In that 10-day time frame, everybody in their infinite wisdom decided to close down the county, and they decided not to issue our certificate because of the non-eviction, non-foreclosure order. The problem with that is this home had already been foreclosed on. It wasn't waiting to be foreclosed on. So
Wow.
we went around in circles with the county for a while, and the short version is we actually sued the county. We sued Volusia County, filed a lawsuit in order to get our title. About 6-7 months into the project, we sued them, and actually the judge ordered the county to give us our title, and that's when we started the project.
Wow. Unbelievable. Man. Well, yeah, that's quite a surprise. That's like one of my questions. What was yours? Any surprises? But yeah, that's huge.
There's a good one.
Yeah.
Yep. It makes it a little difficult with coordinating work as well.
Oh, yeah.
When you don't know when you can start, if you can start.
Sure. I mean, did that cause any additional delays too? Because maybe workers were out sick or anything like that?
Oh, well, for sure, because the very first thing that we had to do was jack the house up because of the foundation issues like we were talking about before. And those guys are real busy, so they were at least a month out, right, Chad? And yeah, and trying to schedule those guys and trying to figure out when or if we were actually ever going to get possession of the property and title to the property, that was difficult. That was a tough one.
Yeah, I bet. Oh my gosh. I had no idea. You didn't tell me this, Chad, when I reached out to you. But
I'm sorry.
no, it's all good. I love this. So let's go to the next slide, Buffy. Okay, so obviously you guys did a fantastic job. And the one thing I wanted to note here was the higher sold price. So I think you had, what was it, 175, right? I think
185.
185 was the your ARV, but I mean 20 grand-ish higher. That's not bad. So what's going on there? The market shifted or what?
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, the real estate market has just gone crazy recently in the last 12 months or so. But just to back up a tiny bit, we actually tried to wholesale this several times. We had many different people, a couple of CFRI members and many other people and nobody wanted to touch this house because of the foundation, you know,
Wow.
and I think it's just the fear of the unknown. Nobody had ever done that before, or most people don't, so everybody's afraid of that. We never did talk to Rob Arnold. I know he's big on foundation issues, but we never did talk to him on this. And so after the first few people didn't show any interest, we thought, well, we'll just roll with it, keep our fingers crossed, and see what happens. And of course, the market definitely went in our favor. And plus the fact that it's actually a 4-bedroom house. It's not a 3-bedroom house, and it's 1,600 square feet. So there were some things, you know, you'll see in the very first few slides, we said 3-bedroom, 2-bath, because that's how it shows on the county record. And that's how we bought it. And we had that intention of 3-2. Turns out it's actually a 4-2. And that's the original construction. We did not change the floor plan.
Oh, wow.
You know, so we actually, we gained a room and some advantages that way. And then the market's just so crazy. We literally named our sales price, and the first person that looked at it took it.
Wow.
So,
That's awesome. And I think that's a testament to your guys' level of work and the quality of work. So I think there's something to be said there as well, because you guys are doing, you know, I'd say high-end flips, right? You're not just doing just real quick, you know.
yeah, I've always been of the personal opinion that you know, bad news travels fast and good news takes forever type thing. And so I've been working towards trying to build a reputation, because whether you want it or not, it's out there. Social media and all that stuff, it's going to be out there. So I'd rather build that good reputation. And my personal approach is, even if it's maybe a little over improved for the neighborhood, I would rather turn over a house to somebody that I know is done right, you know, and make a little less money, because that good news is going to travel, you know. And it's shown in many of the other projects we've done. We actually had a project not too long ago that we sold it 2 days after we got it under contract to buy it. We hadn't even lifted a hammer on the house yet, and we sold it at full asking price. Yeah. So I think that our reputation kind of gets ahead of us there a little bit, and it definitely helps. And, you know, we don't ever, I mean, knock on wood, we don't have trouble selling our property.
And just to add on to that, yeah, reputation is important, and we share the same sentiment in that. But just to take it to another level as well, it's important to do right by the next guy. So in the houses that we're flipping, we know what the quality is and what people expect at the price range that we're in, and then we try to bump it up just a hair. So we try to give everyone a good deal, whether it's you know, a retail buyer who's the end buyer, or if you're wholesaling, you got to leave some meat on the bone so that the next guy will like it, appreciate it, and they'll come back next time when you have the next deal.
Got it. That's awesome. Excellent. Okay, last slide, Buffy. And so you can both answer this. I'll start with Chad. What did you guys enjoy most about doing this deal?
You know, we tend to be very hands-on with our projects. I mean, we're not there every day for the first few weeks during, you know, maybe all the demo and all of the heavy lifting kind of thing. We come in and out, but when we get to the fine-tuning stage, the finish stage, the kitchens, things like that, we're very hands-on. And the part that I liked the most about this particular project was just, I think, the learning aspect. You know, now we've got another notch in the belt, which is the foundation issue.
That's true.
And foundations don't have to be scary, because apparently foundations is another F word that people are afraid of, you know. So they don't have to be that way. And this, you know, that's what we learned. I think the biggest thing we learned out of this property.
Okay, awesome. Devin?
Yep, 100% the learning. So yeah, I know going forward, I'm not going to be scared of any foundation issues. It's the same exact thing when you're flipping houses or remodeling houses. It's just an extra step at the beginning and an extra cost you have to account for. But also, it was the first time that we had to deal with firing a contractor too, which, you know, wasn't great, but it was great for the project in the end. So that was another new thing for us. And having to go through that was a good learning experience as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you both for those answers. That's awesome. So I left us enough time to go get through the Q&A portion. So let's see here. This one's from Natalie. How do you finance those repairs? So I guess you had 70 and it went up to 88. So she's asking, how'd you finance those repairs?
On this project, Devin and I have done, several projects to date, of course, and I think we're both pretty good with money overall, and we've rolled one project into the next and that kind of thing. So this particular project, we paid cash for the entire project ourselves.
Oh.
We did not have a lender at all on this property, which turned out to be good because the property sat for the first 7 months, and that would have been just interest flowing out the door.
That's true. Very true. Okay, the next one. So to sue the county, was that baked into the cost of the repairs? And what were the attorney fees to sue Volusia County?
I think Devin wanted me to address the attorney and the lawsuit thing. So,
okay.
We do use the CFRI attorney, Joe, for quite a bit of things, but we also have another real estate attorney that we use. Local here in town. So we've used him quite a bit, and it turns out when you do, I don't want to say favors, but when you bring people business and then you need something, they're willing to help you. And we actually sued the county. It didn't cost us anything. He did it totally pro bono for us because we bring him so much other business.
Oh, wow.
So that worked out good. We did not actually budget for it. We just thought it was a cost we were going to eat, but he wound up doing it pro bono.
That's awesome. The golden rule, right? Treat everybody the way you want to be treated, with respect, and what goes around comes around. That's awesome.
Right. That's right.
Let's see here. So holding costs. Someone's questioning your holding costs. Chad and Devin. It seems very low for 53 weeks. Was that just for the utilities/insurance?
Yep, because we were able to, use our own money on this one. We didn't have any financing costs. And then we had a little bit of a battle with the city as well, because they wanted us to pay some utilities and whatnot for when we didn't even have title. So we had to argue with them a little bit, and we just ended up paying what we owed for when we had possession of the house.
The other thing too that goes to that, because taxes would obviously, property taxes would be a cost.
Sure.
The county knew that this house was a pile basically, and that it was vacant. And so our tax bill for that whole year was only like $360. So we had like no tax bill. So it worked out great.
Okay, good. Got some breaks here. Let's see. Foundation. Was the foundation issue disclosed at the time of sale? And specifically, was the foundation issue as a result of a sinkhole, or was there something else going on?
Nope, there was no sinkhole, and we bought it at auction, so there was no seller's disclosure, if you will, and there wasn't a sinkhole. It was just the way how busted the carport was and how busted the roof were. Everything was shaped in such a way that all the water for years was running onto one corner of the house, and it just eroded everything underneath the driveway, underneath the house, and created a problem eventually.
Okay. Chad, anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, just as far as the disclosure goes, just in case the question was at the time of when we sold it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, we did disclose the foundation issue when we sold it. We specifically told in our disclosure, we filled that out and mentioned that we had ramjacks go in there. We actually had, I believe it's 10 different rods put in the ground throughout the front of the house and the north side of the house. Anyway, we disclosed all that information, and we actually, at the time of closing, gave all the documentation from Ramjack to the buyer, because that lifetime warranty transfers to the buyer. So Ramjack warrants this house. Anywhere they put a piling, they warrant that it will never move. And if it does move, they will come back and straighten it back up at no charge.
Okay, great.
So it disclosed all that.
All right, very good. So got a few minutes, and I'm going to try to combine some of these questions. So there's quite a few questions about the contractor. So the firing of a contractor. So what I first want to talk about is what are some of your factors for determining a good contractor? And is there any sort of deposit that's provided up front? And then, what were some of the factors that led to that contractor, or group of contractors, however you want to phrase it, getting let go?
Sure. I'll take the first part of that.
Sure.
So when it comes to hiring people, there's a bunch of different ways to go about it. With this guy in particular, I don't believe we gave him any money up front. It was just on a milestone kind of basis.
Good.
And specifically firing a contractor, in this case, he was a handyman. And he was helping us out with some concrete issues, some painting, things of that nature. And when he starts talking about, not showing up on time because he doesn't have gas money, that's a big problem. Or if they show up for a couple hours and then leave for 4 hours to go on lunch and then come back later on, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
They say they're going to be there one day and they're not. A lot of these different cases, they're moonlighting, they're working for someone else and they're doing your job on the side, or vice versa, however that works out. They're just not with you full time, like you're hiring them to be. They're missing their deadlines, things like that. And then the quality will suffer too. Like in this house in particular, we ended up having to repaint everything because he would go in there and he painted over all the cobwebs even. Like it was, the quality just wasn't there. And eventually you got to put your foot down and say, you know what, this isn't working out.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
We got to break up.
Yep.
Okay, Chad, go ahead.
The funniest part about this particular contractor, we actually had, because I mentioned earlier, we had 2 jobs going at one time. So we had him working on parts of both jobs. And we fired him from the other job and sat there in front of this house and fired him from the other job and said, we need you to focus here. It's not working out over there. And if you don't solve this problem, you're going to be, walking down the road. And it wasn't a week later, we had to fire him from the second house. So he clearly didn't get the message. And people that are that dense, you're just not going to get anywhere with them. You have to just move on.
Got it. Okay, one last question. Let me get it in, Jay, please. Okay. What made you decide to fund this yourself versus private lending or hard money? I mean, obviously it saved you in this case, but what was the thought process behind that?
I'll mention a quick one and then I'll let Devin follow up however he likes, but I think that's mostly my fault. I detest paying other people for their money when I have the money available. So, most of our projects we get in, I mean, we're not buying $400,000 homes. We buy these homes anywhere from the $50,000 to $100,000 mark, and then we put anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 in them in most cases. So to me, I'd rather ourselves earn that interest for that couple of months. That's just my personal thing. And so it just worked out for us on this particular house. But because we were fully invested in this house, the other project we had going, we did borrow money on. So.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, well, speaking of firsts, also, this is the first house where we didn't borrow money. I do like borrowing money. If for nothing else, just to, establish a working relationship and to keep those relationships alive and good, especially when you start doing a couple deals here and there and people know that you can handle it and you can handle their money. When that opportunity comes knocking later on where we are doing the $400,000 or $500,000 house, the funds are going to be there.
Gotcha.
And I will say, Devin is totally right about that, because we've actually done, I think our first 2 or 3 projects together, we didn't borrow money, but we have borrowed since on most of our projects. And in doing that, because of Devin and getting us headed down that path, Devin and I could probably make a phone call tomorrow and have $500,000, no problem, no questions asked, no qualifying, no nothing. So
that's awesome.
It's worked out really well, and we have that ability if that right project comes along. So, kudos to Devin for forcing me down that path, because originally it's not something that I was looking at.
Okay, great. And that's why you guys are a team, right? You make each other better, right? Elevate each other and got each other's back. So awesome. I appreciate you guys doing that. And for all of you on the call, I'm so sorry if I didn't get to your questions. There's just so many that come up and we just don't have the time to do it. However, we do have the meeting after the meeting. So those of you that are members, make sure you join the meeting after the meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to get some of those questions answered. Oh, Chad, you got one more thing?
Yeah, just real quick, I'll try to be in one of the meeting after the meeting, so maybe we can address some more of those questions. And in my contact info there at the bottom, the @Daytona Beach area, that's on Facebook. If you guys want to follow along on our project, please go jump on that page. That'd be awesome. We post all of our projects as we go, and you can kind of see some of this stuff real time if you want. So look us up.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be following. So with that, thank you both. This was awesome. We learned so much from all the presenters tonight. So thank you to everyone. Shawn, you too. So thank you guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephen. Appreciate everybody doing that. Shawn, Chad, Devin, thank you guys so much for doing that. And as promised, and without further ado, let's get right into our feature program tonight. Now, tonight you're going to get to hear from Mr. Andy Heller. And neither Andy nor his real estate partner, Scott Frank, have ever intended to become full-time real estate investors. Sounds like a lot of us, I'm sure. However, in their approximately 40 years of combined real estate investing, they have developed a long-term real estate investing strategy. And that's allowed them to make a lot of money, which is always a good thing. And at the same time, minimizing time, effort, and headaches, which is what we all want to be able to do. Now, on a part-time basis, Andy, while being involved in his successful non-real estate career, and Scott as well, putting their families first, they're still managed to rent and sell approximately 100 homes. And over many years, they've made more money in their 2 to 5 hour a week side real estate investing job than in their 40+ hour a week day job. Sounds like the right ticket, right? So as you would imagine, over the years, Andy and Scott have learned a lot. They have eventually gone on to develop what they call the Buy Low, Rent Smart, Sell High program, which is a grounded and realistic wealth generating method. You can use it by one home, but obviously if you can buy one, you can buy two, you can buy three, you can buy dozens. And Andy and Scott are absolutely living proof that can be done. It doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of time. It just takes the desire to make it happen. In 2005, Fortune magazine recognized that Buy Low, Rent Smart, Sell High program among the top 5 real estate wealth building strategies. And after the Fortune recognition, requests came in, I can't imagine why, for Andy and Scott to speak and teach others. Of course, that's absolutely why, because they've learned all this great information during their real estate investing career and they can pass it on to others. So that's when Andy and Scott formed their educational company that's called Regular Riches. Andy and Scott selected the name Regular Riches to show that regular guys, regular gals, just like you and me, can, just like they did, achieve real estate riches. Now, Andy was born in Canada, but raised in Florida. He knows our neck of the woods. He lived for many years in Georgia and California. He studied real estate markets throughout North America, and he's helped countless people in their efforts to realize dreams. And now he's ready to share his knowledge with all of us to very simply and easily put us on the road to financial freedom. And without further ado, Mr. Andy Heller.
Jay, I think I should just stop there. That was such a great introduction. I think let's quit while I'm ahead. First of all, Jay, thank you for all the kind words. The good and bad with tonight's discussion is I get to present to Orlando. The bad is I can't see you all face to face, but hopefully soon. As Jay said in his introduction, so I travel the country and I teach, but certainly there are real estate markets around the country where national educators are more and less familiar with. Other than my home investment market of Georgia, the state that I'm most familiar with intimately is Florida. I grew up about 60 miles from the Mouse in St. Petersburg, Florida. I spent many days and a lot of time in Orlando. So I know your market very well, guys. So let me talk about what we're going to do today, because it's a very unique structure for a general meeting. And then I'll talk also about what we're going to do on Saturday. So today, our discussion today is going to be divided into 3 parts. The first part is I'm going to give you a grand total of 1 slide. This is probably arguably among the most important slides you will see about indicating where the real estate market is going, so we can kind of all plan our investment strategy. And I'll explain why this slide is so important. After that, I'm going to give a very, very quick high-level overview of my model. Not a deep dive, I'm going to save that for Saturday, but a high-level overview, what I teach, why it's important, and why my topic is so important based on the where the real estate market, not where we are today, but where we're going. And I'll tie this to the slide I'm going to show you in a couple minutes. And the last part, I think you all will enjoy a lot. As you get questions, as I'm explaining my model, as I'm talking about where the real estate market's going, post them in the chat room. Jay has the tremendous responsibility of filtering. I've already told him anything difficult he's not supposed to ask me. If it's easy, he can ask me. But in all seriousness,
just make sure they put them in the Q&A.
Put them in the Q&A, guys.
Yep.
And we'll all have a chance to learn on the last section of the discussion. And then hopefully, once we're done, you're going to say to yourself, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I also see how his model can really help based on where the real estate market is going, not just where we are today. And you'll attend on Saturday. And I'll explain later on what we're going to talk about on Saturday. But Saturday will, in essence, be a deep dive into our buy low, rent smart, sell high model as recommended by Fortune magazine. So without further ado, let's get started. All right. So I got to do share my screen, right, Jay?
It should work.
So the thing about me, guys, I'm a great real estate investor, but I am a novice with computers. So I just learned how about the on switch the other day. So I'm very excited. So tell me how this looks, Jay. Can you guys see the slide really good?
You can see the slide. Beautiful.
Great. All right. This slide was provided by the real estate data firm auction.com, formerly known as RealtyTrack. Now, the only thing I want you guys to focus on is the red. This graph is basically presents the number of properties, or number of mortgages where the homeowner is at least 90 days or more behind in their mortgage. There arguably is no other indicator that suggests what's going to happen in the real estate market in the near future than the ratio or rate of, or the numbers of mortgages where homeowners are 90 plus days behind in their mortgages. Very logically, guys, when this number increases and increases dramatically, it means that homeowners are getting in trouble. Most of those homeowners, that leads to eventual loss of property, which means a dramatic rise in inventory. And most of those properties hit the market as REOs, which is what we teach. So many will teach you that if you want to plan for where the real estate market is going, you study the 90 plus day delinquencies, and that can kind of tell you what tomorrow is going to be like, so you can make your plans today. All right. Now, on the left-hand corner, you have the years 2007 through 2014. All right. And when you see the big spike, you see the big spike occurring between 2008 and 2010. Well, we all know what happened then. Many call it the last great real estate sale this country has ever known. What I'd like to say to investors when I teach around the country is, wouldn't it be great if somebody could whisper in your ear, you could turn the clock back, and they could whisper in your ear in 2007 saying, hey, Jay, Buffy, John, in about a year, the real estate market is going to implode. And then It'll take a little while before the market hits rock bottom. But if you get yourself ready to buy a lot of properties between 2010 and 2013, you can set yourself up for life. Well, if that little birdie whispered in any of your ears and you know it to be true, all of you would do anything within your power to be ready to buy a bunch of properties between 2010 and 2013. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today and on Saturday. I'm the little birdie. Okay. Now, the point to understand, we all know what happened in 2008. Began a global meltdown in the global economy, but it was fueled by the US real estate market. All right. The point to understand is these events, when these corrections in markets, they don't just arbitrarily occur. It's not like one day the economy wakes up and says, you know what? It's time for the real estate market to reset and fall 40%. It doesn't work that way. There's always things happening in the market, what we call leading indicators that are telling us what's going to happen. So what you see in this graph, right before the real estate market, the bubble burst, you see dramatic rises in 90-day delinquencies. Again, the red, ignore everything else. The red represents the number of homeowners who are at least 90 days behind in their mortgage. And we know statistically, despite forbearance programs to help these people out, most of the homeowners will eventually lose their homes. And you can see that number hit as high as 3 million. All right. Then the number starts to fall. In the middle of the graph, we see now it goes and it breaks it down into months. So now we see this number stabilizes between 2016 and April of 2020. At the right side of the graph changes and now it breaks it down by month. All right. So what you're seeing now is roughly a 400% increase. Let me repeat that. 400% increase. In the last 6 months we have statistics on compared to the previous 6 months. That is even more dramatic than what we saw and less gradual than what we saw during the last real estate meltdown. Now, what does that mean, everybody? It means that the real estate market will almost undeniably have a reset, okay? Now, I cannot tell you, and nobody can tell you when that's going to happen. I cannot tell you, and nobody can tell you how far it will fall. I can only tell you that most economists, most of those who follow the real estate market and look for historical trends believe we are headed for a reset. Now, there's some other things going on right now before we move past this slide that are very relevant. I want to talk about those before we close out this slide. Some other things are happening out right now. A lot of states, and I think even nationally now, we have forbearance programs, all right? And we have also eviction moratoriums, all right? These are designed to keep people in their homes, whether they are renting or whether they own. Now, when you have a discussion like this, I, as the educator, I speak out of two sides of my mouth. The right side, which is a citizen who loves his country, all right? I'm a big believer in these types of programs. We are in dire economic straits, and to a large degree, the situation is kind of clouded by all these stimulus programs, okay? And this is very normal. Governments all around the world, when you hit rough spots in the economy, they all print money. They inject that in the economy to keep the economies from cratering, all right? Generally, the speaking is that these stimulus programs, they don't necessarily keep the economy from adjusting, but they keep the economy from getting as low as it could get without those programs, all right? And most economists predict the same thing will occur once we're done with the final stimulus programs from COVID. So out of the right side of my mouth, I'm a big believer in all of these programs to help people out. Because what has happened, particularly with COVID, is something that we've never seen in 100 years on the planet. It's horrible. And there's some people really, really struggling. And again, I'm a believer, if this can help out 10, 15% of the people, great. But the other part of this as a real estate investor, when you do have spikes in foreclosures, is eventually leads to opportunities to buy. All right. So we can kind of talk out of both sides of our mouth. We can all be very happy that our governments are doing what it can to help people. But we also need to look at this very realistically as investors, saying this is going to lead to an opportunity. How great when it starts? I can't tell you that. Nobody can. Nobody has a crystal ball, but we do know what this means. Now, one last point before we leave this slide. Typically, another unique element to COVID, typically when governments have these programs, they're much shorter in its duration. The opposite is occurring with COVID. The foreclosure moratorium is actually 18 months. I don't recall any time since I've been out of college that the government has intervened on that level. And again, statistically, these moratoriums and forbearance programs, you find that most people still lose their homes, all right? So think about what I'm saying to you. The longer you're suspending foreclosures, the longer you're suspending evictions, the bigger the pile of properties when the reset occurs. The bigger the pile of properties when the reset occurs, very possibly, unless the economy is absolutely crazy booming, the greater the adjustment. And most people feel that real estate is overvalued right now. And the more overvalued it is, also the greater the adjustment. Okay. So what is the big takeaway from this slide right now, everybody, is what has happened the last 6 months resembles so significantly what happened between 07 and 2010. And we all know what happened then, okay? And you want to ask me what I think is going to happen? I think the adjustment's going to be at least as significant as what we saw the last decade, possibly even greater opportunity for investors. All right, so let me leave this slide. Now we can have people if you want to look at me. I don't know if you're going to want to do that, but okay. So the next part of our discussion today is I'm going to give you a very high level overview of our model. And then the last, I guess, 50 to 60 minutes, we're going to take questions. And then I'm also going to talk about what we're going to do on Saturday. So what's so special about my model other than the fact that Fortune magazine recommended it? And why is it important for all of us today, given what we see with the real estate statistics? Well, when there's lots of properties on the market, when lots of people lose their homes, two things happen. Number one, most of those deals are foreclosures or REOs, which stands for real estate owned properties. And that's what we do. We teach you how to buy REOs. Second, because a lot of people are losing their homes, typically the rental market gets kind of stronger. But when a lot of people who used to be homeowners have lost their homes, many of them don't really want to rent again. They would love to take some steps towards becoming a homeowner again. So typically, post adjustments, the market for lease options explodes. The two things we teach are REOs and lease options. And let me just say, my model is extremely conservative. I've done this since 1990, 31 years, all right? Cookie cutter stuff. And I will talk about this on Saturday. But there's no market where our model does not work. However, there are times where there are sweet spots. There are some years when we buy 1 or 2 properties. There's some years we buy 10 or 20. All right. And typically we try to buy our volume of properties when the market has reset. And the beauty about our model is many people at that time want a chance to buy in the future, and they are desperate for a lease option structure. So both of the things that we teach, the likelihood of where we're going is a sweet spot for our model is very, very likely. So now let me explain a little bit about our model. And Jay, I hope some questions are starting to come in, and we'll field these in as soon as I'm done.
All right.
Years ago, it must be about 32 years ago, I was just out of college, University of Florida, and I wanted to try to make some money, and I didn't have a lot of money. I figured, well, real estate's a great way because you can take a small amount of cash, and if you leverage it properly, you can buy an asset that is much greater in value. And that is a concept that is still relevant for real estate investors. So I saw real estate as my ticket. So I went to a bunch of seminars, I got involved in REOs, and what really sounded good to me about 32 years ago, my partner and I heard about, well, you know, once a foreclosure or a pre-foreclosure becomes a matter of public record, the homeowner has 30 days notice. And then if they can't get their finances in order, they will lose the home at the end of the 30 days. So it's a requirement in all states, these homeowners be given 30 days notice. So one of these models is you go approach these homeowners during the 30-day window, you make them quick sale offers, and sometimes they'll give you a deal because they need to get out of the home and save their credit. Now, in the seminar I attended to 32 years ago, that sounded great. This guy was on stage and made it seem like it was so easy. Well, we tried to put the model into practice, and I have to say, because there are some people on the seminar today that do invest in that space, you can make money. So the educator was right, but here's what he didn't tell me. He didn't tell anybody in the audience that it's a very difficult strategy, because to buy one home, you typically have to visit anywhere between 15 and 20. And every one of these families is involved in a downward spiral. Their lives are falling apart. And, you know, what I realized is I did not have the emotional makeup after visiting a few of these families to make this my primary way to buy property. I mean, there's a story I don't mind telling you that, and I'm not like a wimpy guy. I went into this one property, and this family, I just fell in love with them. They're the nicest family. All right. They showed me this doggy window in the house. We even talk about this visit in our materials. And the little girl shows me the little doggy window that dad cut out in the front door, or the back door, so the dog could go out when he had to go to the bathroom. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to take their home away. And even though I was helping them, I walked out of that home and I just started bawling. I said, and I called my real estate partner, Scott. I said, I can't do this, Scott. I can't do this. Now, let me explain. In the process of identifying families who are about to lose their homes, a pre-foreclosure investor has to subscribe to these lists that list families about to lose their homes. Those same lists are available today. So I had this list that lists the name of the family, the mortgage type, the mortgage amount, the property address, and all the key information. Guess what else was on that? The name of the foreclosing lender. And after I spoke to this one lady, it sounded like there was about 15% equity in her property. There was only 2 weeks before the foreclosure sale. I didn't think there was enough time. I just had that doggy window experience. I just had no interest in going out to see that home. But I noticed the name of the foreclosing lender was a smaller bank in Greater Georgia. So I waited a couple of days after the foreclosure sale. I called the bank. I introduced myself. He told me where there was a hidden key. I went into the house. We made an offer. 7 days later, we purchased our first property. I could not believe how easy it was. There was no emotion. There was no distressed seller. For my bank contact, it was just purely a business transaction for him. He didn't care. He was not emotionally tied to the property. 1 second. Honey, can you grab your phone? That's one of the wonders of Zoom, okay? My wife is getting a phone call, so everybody in Orlando gets to hear this. So now we bought the property. Now our plan, the second part of our model was, I had no intention of being a landlord. We're gonna flip the homes for immediate gain. So now I bought the home from the bank. We put it on the market, and the deal I cut with my real estate partner, because I was just out of University of Florida, didn't have a lot of money. I said, okay, I'll move into the property with a buddy of mine that will cover the mortgage while we fix it up and put it on the market. So it didn't put us in a pressure to sell. So we're about breaking even with what I would have paid an apartment and what we're paying on a mortgage. So we put a fair price on the property. 9 months later, not a bite. And look, I was a single guy, and this home was way up in suburbia in Atlanta. It wasn't anywhere close to anything fun to do. After 9 months, I called my real estate partner and said, I want out of this house. I got to go 45 minutes just to go to a fun place and have a drink with a friend after dinner. So my real estate partner, Scott, who's an attorney, he heard about this model called lease purchasing, but a lot of the structural elements of this strategy were kind of unfair. And what I mean by that is a lot of investors use lease option as a vehicle to get as much cash out of families as possible with no intention of selling them the properties. So we approached it from a very different angle. What if we actually gave people a really good deal, where clearly showed them that we had every intention of selling them the property? Our theory was, if the terms of our lease option were structured, were more attractive, were clearly more fair than what is generally offered in the market, our theory was we would attract a higher caliber tenant. Attracting a higher caliber tenant, we would then in turn make more money. So after 9 months later, after a home I could not sell for 9 months, we changed the ad to for sale or lease purchase. Boom, I was out of that house in 3 weeks. So I want to just say, here's a home we could not sell for 9 months. I was out of there after 3 weeks. And I said to my real estate partner, you know what? I know what we set out to do, buy pre-foreclosures and flip them, but we made it really good money, and we haven't even sold that home yet. We just purchased it. We're seeing making really good money. This was really easy. Why don't we just keep doing this? So some people ask me, well, what is the primary reason for success? Well, one of the reasons is that we were such incredible failures at what we set out to do. The pre-foreclosure and flip guys became the post-foreclosure and lease option guys. So 31 years later, guys, the model is much more refined. But the concept of what we do is exactly what I just described. We identify properties in pre-foreclosure that are likely to go back to banks, all right? And properties that are going back to banks that are approachable, all right? So typically, if let's say Orlando has 3,000 of these properties in the greater Orlando area per month, you'd be looking to find 20, 25 of them that are in areas where you want to buy and are being foreclosed on by banks that you can approach. All right. And we would buy the properties in that window of time after the foreclosure sale, before the property pops up on MLS. So let me explain what I just said again, guys. When I say I teach about how to buy REOs, I don't teach you how to call a real estate agent and drive around and look at properties that are on the market were foreclosed. No, the key is to get to the properties before they hit MLS. Now that window, after the foreclosure sale, before the property pops up on MLS, in most communities, is between 3 and 5 months. We teach you how to work in that window of time. Now, once you've purchased the property from the bank, we do the same thing every single time. We fix it up. We put it on the market for sale or lease option. Now, we do flip a lot of our properties, okay? One of the reasons why we flip so many is because we attract a lot of traffic to our homes because of the lease option part. So if somebody's in that house who just wants to buy, I want you to think about this. In a normal situation, they're in there by themselves or maybe with one other family. They know there's no urgency. All right, maybe I'll make an offer, maybe I won't. My wife kind of likes this property, but we want to see a few more. Versus you're in a home, same home, but instead of there being only one family that's yourself, there's another 15 or 20 families. Now, they don't know that the other 15 or 20 are primarily interested in lease options, but you do. So you say to that family, look, I'd love to sell you the home, but clearly you can see all the traffic. You don't have time to drag your feet. You want to make me an offer. Here's my email. It better come tonight. So he and his wife do not have any time any longer to go look at another 20 homes. If they like that home, they know they have to make an offer. So what I've just explained to you, Orlando, is even when we don't lease option, this model helps us not just to flip our property, a higher percentage of our properties, but when we flip it, to flip it without the normal discounting, because the potential buyer saw all the demand that you had in the home. And only you know that 4 out of 5 of those callers were calling on a lease option. It's very, very well refined the way we do this today. And then when we do lease option, because our terms are better, we do sell a higher percentage of our properties, and we make a lot more money along the way. So one of the things I want to say before I begin to kind of wrap this up and go to the next segment for Q&A, there's a fundamental principle I can teach you as a very experienced investor, all right? Whether you're a newbie, whether you're intermediate, and even if you are a very seasoned investor. If I'm going to tell you my number one piece of advice is this: when you invest, make sure your profit does not depend on a specific outcome, because you can't predict what's going to happen after you buy the property. So what do I mean by that is exactly my story. I don't believe in being a pure buy and flip investor. I don't think it's realistic, because sometimes you'll find you can't find a potential buyer. And I have no interest in discounting my margin. All right. You have to have another way to make money. So I do flip homes, but I don't have to flip. I do lease option my homes. I don't have to lease option. And some of my properties also become long-term lease options. I'll talk more about that on Saturday, where the same families can be in there even beyond the initial period. And then you make some crazy money. The point I'm saying is, no matter which thing happens on the property, I'm going to make money. And the profit just varies from outcome to outcome. I do not believe in being an outcome-specific investor, because you cannot predict when you buy the property what's going to happen after you do your rehab. Okay? So same thing with even wholesaling. What if you can't find somebody to wholesale with? All right, you got a property, you got to be able to rent it. You got to be able to hold on to the property. All right, so you got to have a way to make money that doesn't tie you to an outcome. So let me kind of wrap it up, and then we'll start taking the questions. The reason why our model was featured by Fortune magazine. You're not going to find a more powerful recommendation. And I know Florida, so we're going to find our seminar tonight and Saturday is you're dealing with an educator who really knows your market. And I will tell you, when the market resets, and it is going to reset, okay? I can't tell you when, I can't tell you to what degree. I can tell you I'm 100% certain it's going to happen. And that's why CFRI called me back. They see where the real estate market is going. I've spoken in Orlando twice before, maybe 3 times even. I can't remember. It's been about 7 or 8 years now. And they see what's happening. Like, you know what, Andy, if you're still teaching REOs, if you're still teaching lease options, I think it's a great time to bring you back to Orlando. And based on what we're seeing in the real estate market today, it's not a good alignment for my strategy. it is a perfect alignment for my strategy. All right. So I'm going to, before I start taking questions from Jay, let me talk a little bit about what we're going to do on Saturday. So Saturday is, I got a great program. Of course, we can't do a full day workshop on Zoom because people can't stay. It's just too difficult to sit by our computer for 8 hours like that. So the format that we've been doing for REOs is working really good is a 4-hour workshop. It'll probably be a little bit less than that. We'll start at 9. The first hour is going to be a takeaway from my full day workshop. Purely educational. We're going to talk about identifying the right purchase price when buying property. You'll find that investors of all levels will find that to be a very, very valuable segment. Then we'll take a short 5-minute break. And they're saying my internet is unstable. Should I try and reset this? Can you hear me okay, Jay?
I can hear you okay. It's cutting in and out a little bit. I think you got some bandwidth issues, but keep going.
Okay, good. So after the first hour, we're going to take just a 5-minute break. Now, I'm really big on punctuality. So as long as you come back from the 5-minute break on time, I'm going to give away a $30 ebook for free. So I'll give you a download and you can all download that for free. Then the middle segment will be, I'm going to give you a more detailed seminar on how our model works. All right. And then on the back end, we're going to do another Q&A session, but it's going to be a little bit different because at that time, you're going to have a lot more detail about how our model works, how we approach the banks, what happens if it's not a small bank, how do we identify those 2025 properties. So then we'll take Q&A after. And I'll tell you, it's really powerful, guys. I've been re-engaging with REOs since the summer, since the real estate market has been kind of reset. Some of the REOs that knew me reached out to me and said, hey, we see what's happening, Andy. Are you still teaching? So I am still teaching, but I've been extremely active the last 6 or 7 months because the better REOs around the country are seeing what's happening in the trajectory in the real estate market. They know what I teach, and they want to get an updated seminar for the members. So without further ado, so again, I'm coming back on Saturday. I'm starting promptly at 9. I'm not starting at 9:01. I'm starting at 9 o'clock on Saturday. So get a cup of coffee, get up. And by the way, guys, I'm in California right now. So to give you guys a good seminar, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. So don't give me any grief that it's too early for a Saturday because it's 3 hours earlier for me. Plus I have to shower and shave and brush my teeth before. Okay. So I promise you on Saturday, a fabulous seminar, not only highly educational with a Fortune magazine recommended model, but very, very timely to where the real estate market is going. And again, I know your backyard intimately. I've probably visited the mouse 25 times in my life. All right. So we know each other on first name basis. All right. So without further ado, Jay, do we get some good questions we can get started with?
We have a ton of questions already. So let me just, what I'm going to try to do is maybe combine a couple here and make sure that they fit into the category fairly well. And that'll make it, I think, easier to maybe answer a couple at the same time. The first one here we've got.
And Jay, give me about a 5-minute warning before you want me to wrap. So that I lose track of time when I get into the questions and I really enjoy it. So kind of give me an update.
Absolutely. You bet. All right. So one of the common themes, and we'll go with this as the first one, is why is it that why is your preference in the post foreclosure houses? So for example, you said, you're looking for foreclosed houses that didn't sell at auction and you want to get it from the bank. Why is that the preference?
So that's a really good question. I want to thank the person for asking that. So the bonus product I'm going to give you guys on Saturday is actually a really sexy product called 10 Ways to Buy Property Below Market. All right. So I'm not a one-trick pony. I bought properties many different ways, and we'll even give you some of those in the bonus section with the bonus product. However, about 95% of what we bought are bank-owned properties after the foreclosure sale. And the answer to your question is kind of simple. Of all the ways we found to buy property below market, buying from banks is the easiest by far. By far. And I'll give you just a couple of nuggets right now. I'll save the rest for Saturday. One is that I bought homes from individuals who are in trouble. It's really, really difficult, guys. And the ability to buy property from a business where there's no human emotion, it is fantastic. It allows you to really approach this as an investment. You don't have to feel bad at night and no trouble sleeping because you visited this family with a doggy window. You don't deal with any of that. You're dealing with a business that doesn't want the property in the first place. The second reason is one of the most interesting points I'm going to make. And I want you to think about this very carefully, Orlando. Every other way to buy property below market that I'm aware of, every other way, your likelihood of buying a second property from that seller is zero, almost zero, except when you buy from banks. Buying from banks is a different type of purchase. So let me explain. So there's Bank of J in Greater Orlando, great name for a bank. So I buy a property from Bank of J. I follow the scripts and the tips in my course. I take Jay out to lunch. We start the form A, starts with an R, relationship. I introduce myself to Jay. I tell him where I'm interested in buying. I tell him the types of properties I want to buy. I just bought from him, so I've proven myself to him. And over the next handful of years, I continue to buy property from Jay over and over and over again. I'm going to give you a statistic before we take the next question that I hope all of you will understand how exciting this statistic is. I would estimate that over my career, 75% of the properties I've bought are from sellers who previously sold me a property. I want you to think what that means. How much easier would your investing be if you're buying boatloads of properties from sellers who you've already bought from? And those of you who want to wholesale, you talk to any successful wholesaler, they're buying almost all their properties from banks because banks are the only potential seller that can sell wholesalers volumes of properties. So wholesalers also, if you're going to be successful as a wholesaler, you've got to master how to buy from banks, which is what we teach. Jay.
Great. This is a perfect answer to that. And I like how you're pointing out the relationship piece of it. To me, that ties it back to some of the stuff. I don't know if you got to see the deal of the month that we did, but we were talking about a couple of guys that were working together on it and how easy it makes that deal for them because they know what they're doing. They have the relationship. And again, like you're saying, that makes it so much easier to do the next one. All right, so another common theme from, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of these questions was when you're trying to work with the banks. So you're going to approach the bank and go to them and say, hey, I want to buy this post foreclosure house. Is there anything that you have to worry about from a legal standpoint? There are some people saying, is that really legal? Can you do that?
Oh my God. Yeah. So let's, again, whoever's giving these questions, you guys are doing a great job. I mean, I do presentations and some of the questions are just not particularly insightful or deep or relevant. And these are great questions.
Yeah.
And I actually have a segment in Saturday when I talk in more detail about that exact question. When you're buying a property from a bank, it's a post foreclosure or REO. REO stands for real estate owned property. All right. So the beauty about this way to buy is you get a deal because it's a foreclosure, but the legal process known as the foreclosure process is actually over. It ends on the courthouse steps. So there's a bit of an anomaly there. You're getting a deal because it's a foreclosure, but the legal process of foreclosure is actually over. It ends. And that's another reason why I like this way to buy, because you don't have to worry about emotion. You don't have to worry about any legal, some states do have some legislation in place that affects what investors can and cannot do when buying properties during foreclosure. That does not affect you when you buy a post foreclosure. It's over. Next question. Keep them coming. Putting a lot of pressure on the rest of the questions because those first ones were so good.
Well, like I said, we have a lot of them in here. I'm looking at the clock going, I don't know how we're going to get all these, but hey, we'll do our best. So I think the most popular question so far, because I think I've seen this one, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times already, maybe more. So who's in charge of selling REOs? Like, is there somebody specific in the bank that is in charge of this process?
Yeah, so let's break this down a little bit for a second. So I'm going to put the banks into 2 buckets, everybody. There is smaller banks and larger banks. All right, smaller banks, I would call them local banks like Bank of J, a regional bank, banks that maybe Florida, Alabama, Georgia, over in 2 or 3 states. Credit unions would fall in that category. So when you deal with a smaller bank, there is no generalization. You just got to call, and we teach you how to make that phone call. We teach you how to ask these questions about who's in charge. But some of these banks you'll find it could be the bank president. Some of them will have a person that's his or her responsibility. And again, sometimes you just have to ask. Okay, but the smaller banks, because they don't have quite the volume, they may not have a department, an REO department, okay? The larger banks, like the foreclosures you get from like Bank of America, from Wells Fargo, from Deutsche Bank. One of the jokes I make on stage, which I guess I have to make it on Zoom now, is that, okay, if you figure out how to call Wells Fargo directly, I'll buy your system. It's not possible, guys, all right? But I want you to think about what I'm about to say to you. Banks are amongst the most structured of organizations in our country, all right? So structures of businesses in our country, all right? They do the same thing over and over again. I mean, we all know that bank manager who seems to wear the suit same suit every single day. These are banks. Okay, these are people who work in banks. These are how banks work. So if Wells Fargo gets a foreclosure in Greater Orlando, they're not going to go online or open up the phone book years ago and eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I'm going to give it to this realtor. It doesn't work that way. In every metropolitan area in the country, there typically are 2, 3, 5, or 6 what we call REO agents. Real estate agents, typically brokers, who dominate the market for market and bank REOs. Okay, so if you see a foreclosure by Wells Fargo, you're not going to try to call Wells Fargo, all right? What you're going to do is you're going to call the 1 or 2 or 3 agents in Orlando that are likely to get that listing. So, but again, just like approaching the banks, we script this out for you. We tell you how to approach these agents, how to find them in the first place, and how to approach them, and how to introduce yourself, even if you're a rookie, so that they take you seriously.
So Andy, following up on that just a little bit, are there any that you would say are maybe not approachable, or are the smaller banks more approachable, or what would be the
well? So let's pretend that all of you like a variety of food, that we know not know vegetarians. I call that a steak or sushi question. All right, I love steak and I love sushi. It's tough to say which you like better. Depends on your mood of the day. Both are great, Jay. Okay. It has some nuances that are a little bit, some areas I like working with smaller banks better. Some areas I like working with the REO agents better. Okay. They're both great. And And truthfully, I don't really care as long as I get a deal, okay? One of the advantages of an REO agent is if you establish the right relationship, he or she could have a higher volume of properties, okay? But the flip side is there may be a little bit more competition. You get with a bank that only gets 4 or 5 foreclosures a year, but you become their go-to person. Hey, that's not a bad gig either, guys. Who cares if they don't have 500 foreclosures? They got 5 or 6 and they call you. I mean, you're probably not going to buy that many properties anyhow by yourself. So a great story I can give you is there was a REO agent we met in Greater Atlanta, and he was the REO agent for a number of banks, but one specific credit union that had foreclosures in Greater Atlanta. So once we bought our first property, we met the guy for lunch one day. He was your classic Southern gentleman. He loved his steaks. So from that point forward, every December, Scott and I would take out Al at the nicest steakhouse in Atlanta for a fantastic steak dinner. All right. Okay. We expensed it. He loved us. And for about 8 or 9 years until he retired, we were his go-to investors in Northern Atlanta. He didn't even bother to list the properties. He got the list them back. He said, oh, this fits the criteria of Scott and Andy. I'm just going to call them. All right. But we proven ourselves. We were reasonable. We closed. All right. And we were quick. All right. So we were a sure thing as long as he was giving us a property that was in the areas and the types that we like to buy. So this is how these relationships go, guys. And once you've got the first deal from whether it's an REO agent or a bank, you've already got that relationship planted. Jay?
All right. So for the next one, I'm going to kind of combine a couple again that are in the same theme here. For example, one of them was along the lines of, how are you finding the REOs? But making that more of a bigger question, how is it that you're finding and approaching? And, we've said relationship multiple times that's important really with these particular institutional sellers. And so how are you doing that? How are you finding it?
Well, okay. So the question is answered in about a 3 or 4 hour course. So I think that Jay and Buffy would not have me back if I answered that question in its entirety now. All right. So what I'm going to say right now, though, guys, is it's easy. It's not a difficult part of our system, but we do have a product specifically that details specifically what to say and how to approach them. Okay. Finding them is easy. Again, if you are subscribing to the pre-foreclosure list, the name of the foreclosing lender is there. You got that information, guys. Then you just need to know what to say to them and how to approach them. For that, we give you 2 things. One is the conversations are likely to go one of 3 ways. So we give you the scripts for all 3 scenarios. All right. As long as you guys can read, we're preparing you. All right. And we even give you a role-playing CD that little banter back and forth so you can be prepared if you hear something that's not in our script. So as long as because like every time I teach, Jay, there's always some people that say, hey, Andy, I tried to call the bank, it didn't work. There's typically 2 reasons why, if that happened to you, it didn't work. One is you're not saying the right thing, which is why we give you the script of what to say. All right. And for some of you, even seasoned investors, you may be very surprised that what you might think intuitively you should be saying is not what you should be saying. So no matter how much experience you have, the scripts will be very helpful. The second and a very important issue is the timing of your phone call is very important. Because remember what I said, in most states, from the time of the foreclosure sale until a property pops up on an MLS is typically 3 to 5 months. All right. If you're calling them right before they're ready to put the property on MLS, it's too late. the timing of your phone call has to be before the bank has begun their marketing, which is why everything, you're starting to see already the pieces come together, which is why you start to trace the property before foreclosure, because that enables you to make the phone call right after the sale. Any questions on lease options just to balance it out, or we all stick, most of the questions on REOs, Jay?
Yeah, I actually, let's see, let me scroll down here a little bit. I've got, we do have a couple here. Let's see. So with the lease purchase, let's see, I've got easiest way to rephrase this. So once you acquire the property, you had said you would use a lease purchase to rent and then sell it. What's the purpose behind that? Why the lease purchase?
Okay. There's another question that's really tough to answer shortly, but here are the cliff notes. Remember I said earlier, I do not believe fundamentally as an investor, you need to be an outcome specific investor. You need to be able to make money no matter what happens with the property. We love to flip. We would like to flip our properties. There's nothing like quick cash. All right, because I'll turn the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in quick cash into 3 more properties. All right, but if you cannot flip quickly, I'm also greedy. I'm not going to discount. And I do not believe in renting property. I do not like renting. One of the fastest ways to lose your hair is to become a rental landlord. All right, I lease option, Jay, because it attracts a higher caliber tenant. It attracts them faster. Some of these tenants actually buy down the road and put money in my pocket. And if you make the structure of the deal very impressive, part of the deal is that I'll give them a good chance to buy, but don't call me. You got to take care of the property. So the lease option eliminates 9% of the phone calls that the pure rental landlords have to deal with. So I use lease option because it attracts a higher caliber tenant. It attracts them fast, attracts traffic, which helps me to flip the property. And when I can't flip, I can rent it, but under a lease option where I can really go into the background and I don't hear from the tenants.
That makes total sense. I mean, somebody that's doing lease option, they've got that pride of ownership. It's something that they want to take care of. They've got a vested interest. Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah, and before you move to the next question, I want to say one more thing to all of you who are rental landlords. The mentality of the lease optionee is so incredibly different from the mentality of a rental tenant, that there's nothing I can say that can fully communicate this until you've done yourself a half a dozen lease options. Rental tenants, for the most part, do not care about your home. They don't. Even the nice ones, they don't care. So they know they're going to leave it. Lease option tenants, they do care about the property. And they take care of that property. Like they're going to buy the property. And you know what? I'm going to pivot to a really quick story for 120 seconds that will communicate that point, and then give Jay some time to filter some more of the questions. So at the end of every year, we send a letter to our lease option tenants that tells them how much money they have towards buying the property if they buy. Okay. And part of the reason for this is just psychologically, it really is exciting to get that letter every year that sees, oh, I got all this money waiting for me, but only if I buy. All right. So I had a tenant, lovely lady, and she just got behind. She got in over her head on the home. And we had to file a couple of dispossessories. She ended up coming up with some money, and she was able to stay in the home. And here we are, another November. She got behind. This time she ended up losing the home, but she was not out of the house yet in December. So at this point, she's a month or so behind, and she needs to be worried about coming up with the money for the rent. So she calls me in December. Hey, Andy. Yeah, what's going on? I didn't get my letter that about how much money I have towards purchasing. And I'm thinking to myself, lady, I think you ought to worry about getting us your rent first. But I just said, the truth of the matter is, I thought she was on her way out and I wanted to save the cost of the stamp. That's the honest truth. And but I thought about that often. I talked to my real estate partner, Scott, about this. And I said, if I was to go back to school and be a psychologist and write a dissertation, I would have written it about that phone call. Because here is somebody on her way out of the property and mentally she's still buying the home. Think about how powerful that story is, guys. And sure enough, she lost the home. I got the home back. It wasn't in bad condition because even up to the last minute, she thought she's going to buy the home. And this is why we don't rent. Yeah, look, I've been doing this for 31 years. So the only way to be an investor and not have some nightmares is not to buy properties. So I've got some crazy stories, but my number of properties where I've taken back, where I've really had to put a lot of money into is really the exception. What I can say on an average out basis, a lease option investor who does it right, their rehab costs tend to be thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars below a rental tenant who's rehabbing and putting properties back on the market because the outgoing tenant expected to buy even on the last month. Jay.
Makes perfect sense. All right, I've got two questions here that I think I've seen over and over and over again. So let's tackle
We better answer them, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Short version of this one goes along with the list of, how are you going to buy these properties for the banks? Is the bank a good source for investors that don't have a lot of money?
The banks are the best source for investors without a lot of money. So I'm going to dive into financing your deals in greater detail on Saturday. Here are the cliff notes, guys. One of the things that is exciting and should be exciting to you about the opportunity to buy bank-owned properties is also one of the most misunderstood ways to buy property below market. All right. One of those misconceptions is that, buying from a bank, I bet I need to have a lot of money. No, you don't. I'm living proof for that. All of our early offers had loan contingencies. I didn't have a lot of cash. Every offer we made was contingent on us getting a loan. So when you buy from a bank, it's actually no different than buying from any other source. None whatsoever. And the banks, frankly, they could care less how much money you have. The bank cares about one thing. I'll tell you what it is. Does that person close? If you prove that you can close, they don't care whether you're using a loan, whether you're using private money, whether you're using an equity partner. They don't care. They care that you close. Now, some of these banks will also, what is a bank's business, everybody? It's lending money. Hello? Yes, it's lending money. So some of these banks, not all of them, but some of the banks will also offer you a loan to buy their property below market. So back to my earlier story, Jay, is like you're going to a steakhouse and they give you a free sushi appetizer. Okay, so the loan is a free sushi appetizer. Oh my God, thanks for the great steak. And I wasn't expecting the sushi. So, but again, you can't approach this expecting every bank to do this, but some banks will.
All right.
So that will also save you much needed cash, as you buy a property. So big picture, buying from banks is no different than buying property any other way when you approach specifically to financing. But there are some advantages when buying from banks in that number one, banks typically will give you good deals, so you need less cash because your buying price is lower. And some of these banks will also give you a loan to boot. Jay.
All right. So another common one, I think I've seen this from 5 or 6 people here. It deals with, if we're talking about these properties, some, like for example, one person said, I heard the banks want to sell for the highest price, and so they're going to give it to a realtor and they're going to market through MLS. How is it that you're going to convince them to sell you the post foreclosure house instead of just listing it with an agent?
Well, the honest answer is, and I'll talk a lot more about this on Saturday. When you buy from banks, and frankly, like a lot of other strategies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a numbers game. Some banks are going to say, I'm going to wait the market on MLS. All right. Some banks will be very happy not to have to deal with rehab. Particularly some banks, if we're in a down cycle, they're going to have a lot of properties, and they're like, I would love to reduce that number by 1 or 2. So fine, here's 1 or 2 for you, Jay. The rest of them I'll give to my agent. Okay. Some of the properties, okay, well, this has a rehab problem. I don't have a plumber. And if you'll go ahead and buy this property, fine, you can have it. So the point I'll say there, guys, is you don't need all the banks to say yes. All you need is 2 or 3 a month, all right, or whatever amount you're interested in. So that does work, all right. One other thing, but that's a great segue for another good story. So sometimes you will not be able to buy properties in that window. But remember, this is a little bit different. This is a different way to buy. And some things that I want to communicate, guys, is sometimes you're not aware of what's going on behind the scenes. So let's say, I'll pick on Buffy now. So Buffy is an REO agent in Orlando, and she represents Wells Fargo. I have a relationship with Buffy, right? Buffy knows Andy. I like to buy in the following areas of Orlando. I like to buy middle-income homes. I'm a sure thing. When I make my offers, I always close, all right? So Buffy has, she works with Wells Fargo, and the Wells Fargo, typically they're okay with 50 foreclosures in greater Orlando, but right now there's 150. So Buffy gets a phone call from the big boss at Wells Fargo who says, you've got 30 days to get that number from 150 down to 50. Now, so here are 150 properties that are on MLS. And Buffy got that phone call. So what do you think she's going to do? Is she going to have 150 open houses? Forget it. She's going to call 1-800-ANDY because she knows I'm a sure thing. Because I'm going to move faster than a homeowner. All right. So here's a property that is on MLS. But once Buffy gets that phone call, it's very unlikely a homeowner is going to buy that property. Buffy, the REO agent, is going to make 5 or 6 phone calls to the investors she knows, like me, who are interested in those types of properties, who move fast, who are professional, and who, when they close, they are sure things. So here's a property on MLS, but you're buying it because of your relationship with the REO agent. This is a relationship-oriented way to buy property that is fundamentally different than any other way to source property that I'm aware of. And I've bought properties many different ways. Thanks for asking that question.
Yep, absolutely. All right, now one that's been asked several times, and I bet I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Where do we get this list of pre-foreclosure homes?
All right, well, 3 places. There are national resources such as auction.com, such as foreclosure.com, which last I checked was centered in Florida. All right. And that is an option. There is a free option in that a pending foreclosure, as far as I know, in all 50 states, has to be published as a matter of public record within 50 days of the foreclosure. So local county newspapers typically publish this information, all right? So when we started 31 years ago, we subscribed to a Georgia foreclosure report, but also for 4 counties, we got these local newspapers. So the information is free. You don't need to spend a dime. But the Georgia foreclosure report was a regional source that took these county newspapers and put it into a nice report for investors, primarily who are buying pre-foreclosures. We use that same report, but to buy post-foreclosures. So the third way, so you got the national listing services, you got the local county newspapers where it's free, are regional regional compilation services that compile this information. Most of your REOs will know about one or two in the area. There's this thing called Google. Just go on there and go Florida foreclosure list, Greater Orlando foreclosure list, pre-foreclosures Orlando, or talk to your REO officers. I would bet in Florida, you've got 2 or 3 regional resources for this data. Okay, so the question is not, can you get it? The question is simply which of the resources you find is the most efficient. Even though the information is available for me for free in these Atlanta county newspapers, I like to pay for the regional source simply because it was very, very quick, very organized, and it saved me time. All right. Now, I will say this. Once you have your 2 or 3 sources, you may never need again, or for quite some time, to go to those listing services, because you've already got your, I got my Buffy over here, I've got Jay over here, I got Steve over there. Keep in mind, guys, these sources are not available to sell you 1 property a year. Someone can sell you 10, 20 a year. So even in you very deep pocketed investors, typically most of you can only work so many properties per month. Okay, so most of you only can functionally handle 2 or 3 of these sources. And once you have them, you really don't quite have the need to go through those reports every month. Now, I don't mind saying, after I got established and over periods of time over my 31 years, I got lazy. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's what's great about this model. I mean, why in the world do I want to go through my reports if I can just call Al every month, say, what do you got for me this month? That's so much easier. And you'll get there once you've made your first 1 or 2 purchases.
All right. So we have, going back to lease option for a moment. We had some questions that go around that, and some of them that they may be things that we'll talk about on Saturday. Like, for example, can you claim depreciation? You know, does the tenant pay tax and insurance? But let's look at a bigger picture here. If I'm going to do something like a lease option, you know, what would an investor expect to get out of this? Let's start there.
Okay, so one of the things we'll be diving very deep into on Saturday is how much money you can expect to make.
Okay.
Based on different outcomes. So I'm going to answer that in great detail on Saturday, Jay. So that's my carrot to attend on Saturday. All right, so I'm gonna push that down to Saturday, because I really need some slides to show you how much money you make based on different outcomes. Flip in, the original lease purchaser buys it. What if they don't buy it? And what if the family is in the property for 3 or more years, hasn't bought but wants to still stay? So all 4 of those scenarios, I'm gonna give you numbers, percentages, and also projected profit.
And would it be safe to say that you'll?
So I will give you one nugget now, and that is, there is a sweet spot for lease option. Okay, it's not low-end homes, it's not high-end homes. Okay, it's middle income properties. Now, middle income is not a number. Middle income is a range. In Georgia, lower middle income to upper middle income, that range is around 150 to maybe even 700,000. It's a pretty nice range to buy lots of properties. I suspect Greater Orlando is probably not too different than that. Maybe a little bit higher. If there's a pool.
Would you say it's probably fair then also that like the questions on depreciation, who pays tax and insurance, those are more kind of Saturday questions, or those ones that we could answer now?
Yeah, okay, yeah, well, no, I'm sorry. That was me being in my 50s, Jay. I forgot that part of the question. as long as you own the property, from a accountant standpoint, you treat it like a rental landlord. The fact that you lease purchase is irrelevant. You are renting the property, but you've given your tenant a second legal agreement. It's an option to buy. It's meaningless unless they execute that option. Until they execute that option, you're renting. Okay? So when you rent, you get the benefit from depreciation. You get all the tax benefits. You pay the taxes.
All right, and we kind of answered this, but because there were 2 or 3 other questions that related to, I'll read you what they wrote, and if there's something else you want to add to it, you can. One person was asking, where did you and your real estate partner get the money to buy the properties, and would you ever use private money lenders to fund the purchases?
Okay, so one of the things that I fundamentally believe in, Jay, I don't believe in talking too much about yourself when you're on stage, because in the education business, unfortunately, everybody, a lot of people just don't tell the truth. I am somebody, if you Google me, I've got a very good reputation in the space. I'm not a full-time investor, all right? I've got other businesses. I'm not a full-time educator. I do this a couple of times a month just because I love it. So I can afford just to kind of give it to people like it is and just be honest with people. So when you ask what I do, I think the right answer to that question is, let's not worry about what Andy Heller does, okay? It's more important, what are my students doing? So one of our products is called Money Talks, where we go through different financing strategies that my students use to buy. And yes, a lot of my students use private money, okay? Now, what I will say though, when I was just out of University of Florida and moved to Atlanta, fine dining for me was when I got McDonald's and I got Biggie fries. Ooh, more food, for 50 cents. So I did not have a lot of capital, all right? So the way we got started, we would scrape together enough money for a loan on these properties. And there were 2 of us, so I came up with half, Scott came up with half. We barely got into one home. And we had to wait a year before we got enough money together for that second home, a year for that third home. But then the first home sold, and once that first home sold, forget it. At that point, we got a nice cash windfall, and we were able to, at that point, to buy at a much more accelerated pace. Now, you don't have to start off as slowly as we do, okay? We just elected, and we were kids, guys. We didn't understand what private money was. Private money was when mom and dad gave us a check and said, don't tell your sister. that was private. I just came up with that one right now. My sister would kill me. So that was private money when we were in our 20s, coming out of University of Florida. But we could have, if we'd known what private money was, if we'd been to one of those seminars, we could have started and accelerated at a much faster pace. But what I want to stress, the big picture is, there are so many ways to finance these deals. The question is not, can you get finance? The question is, what strategy do you choose to raise the capital? That's the question. And that's why we have an entire product called Money Talks that gives you, I think it's 9 different financing strategies for buying really any properties, but specifically we focus on buying from banks.
All right. So we're getting into the final stretches. We got about 8 minutes left. And
all right, let me, before you do that next question, I'll talk a little bit again, just remind you all what we're gonna do on Saturday.
That was actually going to be my question.
Okay. Well, there you are. You got to come up with another one, Jay.
All right.
So Saturday, guys, I'm not going to start at 9:01. I'm not going to start at 9:02. I will start at 9 promptly. So get on earlier. I've got some messages that my internet wasn't especially good tonight. I'll double check it. And the good news is it's 5 a.m. in San Francisco. My children will not be on the internet. So here in my home office, I will have the internet to myself. That's a sure thing. So I will start at 9. First hour will be a pull away segment from our full day workshop. It's really one of the most valuable tips and strategies for investing. We're going to give that to you in the first hour. Short coffee break. You come back and you're on time from that short coffee break and bathroom break, I will give you a product for free, 10 ways to buy low. It's a free ebook. So I'll start then shortly around 10:15, 10:10, and we'll go through our model A to Z. And at the end of that will be another Q&A session for 30 to 45 minutes until Jay says, dude, I gotta go, all right? Quit talking. So, and then by that time, my kids will be getting up here on the West Coast and they're gonna screw up the internet anyhow. So those are gonna be the 3 segments. Buffy's put up here, it's a whopping $9 for members, okay? And 14 for non-members. I mean, I actually think I'm gonna register for myself even though I'm doing it. So what I promised you all, Orlando, is the greatest, most timely seminar you've ever attended. I've got the right topic at the right time. All of you know the real estate market's overheated right now. All of you know that it's very difficult to get a deal. But if you've been on this, if you've been out of college for 10, 15, 20 years, you know that things do not last forever. Real estate moves in cycles. And the real question is, where is it going? And where's the opportunity? All right. And that's really what we're going to be covering on Saturday. I'll start at 9. I'll be done somewhere between 12:30 and 1. Get a cup of coffee, get a glass of water, have yourself a snack, have a notepad. Now, I can't remember, Buffy, I sent you a worksheet that everybody will need to print out 3 of these worksheets for the first segment. I guess let everybody know if we're going to put it on the website, whatever. But if you didn't get that, Buffy, let me know and I'll flip it to you tonight and we can figure out to post it on your website or something. But you're going to want to download 3 copies of that or print out 3 copies of that worksheet before we start at 9 a.m. on Saturday. So question or 2, Jay?
Yeah, Buffy, did you want to say something? You were on
I'm
mute.
sending them the link.
Oh,
People are
great.
registered. I'm sending them the link to download that.
Excellent. So what about like the scripts you were talking about? Is that one of the things that everybody can expect for Saturday?
Well, I'll be talking about the script. Oh, look, that is in our system, Jay. I'll be talking about how we use the script. All right. And yeah, that will be part of Saturday for sure.
And then one other thing that I saw, I think probably 3 or 4 times in the list here is, you know, I don't think we've talked about what type of properties these are that you might be getting from the banks. I think everybody's kind of just assuming, so it's a single family residential, but that's not necessarily true, right?
I mean, that's great. And also you're stealing away my Saturday, Jay. That's one of my segments on Saturday. Yes. Look, I love to buy single family homes because they make for great lease options. All right. And I buy the type of properties that work for my exit strategy. All right. But a lot of our students are not interested in single family homes. Some buy commercial properties, apartment buildings, some buy vacation, some buy vacant lands. The REO process is 100% identical and doesn't matter what type of property you're buying. They all carry loans and the foreclosure process works the same way, 100%. Now, once you bought it, some properties make for better lease options than others. So we've done all single family homes, one exception. We have a very, very lucrative lease option on a small 10-bedroom, 5-bathroom, small personal care center, okay? So, and that works for a lease option, but some commercial properties don't really work for lease options. But in terms of the buy-in end, the foreclosure process does not differentiate between type of properties.
Yep, no, that's absolutely excellent. I know we've got like about 3 minutes left, and I wanted to remind everybody, if you haven't signed up already, you definitely want to sign up for this class. As Andy already said, I mean, $9 for members, 14 for non-members. Andy, like you, I'm going to just go sign up everybody I know, basically.
I'm hoping if you get nothing else from our first hour and a half, 2 things. One is, I know my stuff, guys. I'm considered to be the leading expert in the country on bank-owned properties and lease options. And I'm genuine, okay? I'm myself, and I know my topic. So, and I know your state, you could not have a more timely workshop for a more timely topic from an educator who knows your backyard than what we have set up for Saturday. I think if I'm going to say one more thing, and I'll see again, Jay, if you have another question or two, I can take them for sure. But,
Okay.
You know, I'm a big believer that life comes down to pivotal moments, some opportunities. All right. We are sitting right now. There's been a lot of very, very sad stuff in the world the last year. It's been a crappy year, guys. Let's just get right down to it. But for real estate investors, we are about to head into what I believe will be the opportunity of a lifetime. All right. And if you do not attend on Saturday, your opportunity to take advantage of that is around zero. All right. There's a reason why Jay and Buffy reached out and said, Andy, are you available to come back to Orlando? We see what's happening. We know what you teach. And I think the time, it could not be better for you to come back to Orlando. And now with Zoom and everything, us living in a virtual world, you guys can sit in your pajamas and do this. It's that much easier. But I do believe that we are sitting on a very unique time, guys. All right. The real estate market right now has some very unnatural things going on. All right. And this will pass. But the statistics about the 9-day delinquencies is a very, very significant statistic. It's a leading indicator on where the market will be in the near future. Saturday is about positioning yourself to be ready to take advantage of that. But if you don't come at 9 a.m. on Saturday, I can't help you.
All right. Well, I know you like to be
Jay?
prompt, and it is right here at 8:30. So Buffy, well, first of all, thank you so much, Andy. We really appreciate that. And I know I'm looking forward to Saturday. Buffy, I'm going to pass it back over to you for any last minute things we need to do before we close it out there.
No, the only thing is to sign up for Andy's class on Saturday, 9 to 1 p.m. via Zoom. Yes, a lot of people have asked me. We will be making the video replay available, and you get PHP credits if you're looking to get your PHP certification through National REIA. Members are $9, non-members are $14, and I just encourage everyone to register.
Absolutely. Do not miss this. You're going to miss your opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy.
Yep. Thank you so much,
We
Andy.
look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Yes, indeed.
Buffy, Jay, I can't wait. You guys all have a great next couple days. We'll see you Saturday. What time? 9 o'clock, guys.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. sharp.
Okay, we'll see you then. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.